this is Craig from the University of Applied Research and Development. I'm delighted to have with us Kevin, who is the Director of Health and Safety, Safety and Health Director for Qiddiya, a massively large infrastructure project in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, Craig. How are you?
Great to have you here. As we were saying just before I started recording, the majority of our podcasts are around emergency response and managing extreme incidents. And I thought that you'd be a great person to speak to about some of the processes we can put in place to really maybe mitigate some of those more extreme situations. You were talking about some things that could happen to help that in the future. So I'd love to hand it over to you to just share your wisdom and experiences with us, what you're doing now and how you go about it.
Okay, thank you for the invite, Craig. Nice to be here. Nice to be invited. As we spoke briefly there, I'm a great believer in the sharing aspect of health and safety, and I believe there's still not enough of that between large companies that are out there and invest in great systems. You look at the oil and gas industry's got fantastic systems, integrated safe systems of work, or ISOs, as we call them, and I had the pleasure of working with like Angell previously when I was a technical director with Jacobs on some projects, and they really do have a great record in health and safety performance because of those integrated safe systems of work. But where you come to what I believe a stumbling block is that there's companies out there that want to develop, want to improve, want to be more transparent, want to have that integrity and honesty. And a bit kind of in a lot of ways are being held back. Especially with them, you look at contractors, they go to Dr. Google to get their health and safety manual. They cut and paste, and there's references to things that don't have any reference to the specific jobs they're doing. And there we find themselves into a reason that they might be actually putting risks in there or hazards in there that aren't really relevant to that scope of work. So, but once they put it in there, then you're obviously banged by that to actually monitor. If they say they're doing confined space and they're not doing any confined space work, and you get that as part of their KPI or part of their performance module, you'll be looking at, let's have a look at your confined space procedure. Oh, we haven't got one. Well, but you've got it in your impact risks and stuff. So some people don't see the thing that you have to look at stuff and do it bespokely. So if you're doing predominantly working at height, you address just working at height issues and the people that have the resources, the tools, the safe systems of work that are required to do that. Now, there's lots of great companies out there, that I've worked for, Jacobs, KBR, really, really, really top engineering companies. And I believe that there's still not that sharing culture that health and safety to me is not a big secret. It's a lot of common sense. As one of my mentors used to say, it's a common sense approach to causation. And that was a guy called Paul Difford from the Institute of Industrial Accident Investigators, who are a fantastic sort of theory, looking at the previous sort of theory, all the other theories, Dr. Reason and stuff like that, and Professor Reason regarding beta and delta models, and always defaulting back to management failures, which I'm not a great believer in. Actually, I don't think everything can default back to management failure. It's impossible. But if only all these big companies were to put their heads together and best in-house practices and global best practices and say, right, we're going to share this information and it's going to be there as an open forum for people to grab, I would think you'd see a massive, massive step change in performance levels and behaviours and the culture of health and safety across the globe. And we're still hurting people. If you want to look at things, we're still hurting people. I think there's a lot of companies out there that are focused on the statistic rather than the person. And so we'll manipulate a figure to get that fantastic performance. We've got no LTIs, we've got a 0.001, lost time injury frequency rate. We've got a total recordable incident of only 0. Fantastic. But for me, if you concentrate on one thing or a couple of things really, which is people, your main asset, your most valuable asset. All these companies say the same things, buzzwords. Our most important asset are you, the people. If you were to concentrate on solely that alone, what will fall in behind that? Your figures. All those lovely statistics that you tried to manipulate and spin, all those things will fall in behind that, because you're concentrating on the one element of health and safety that we're all trying to do is preservation of life, prevent injury, property damage. And you know, you look at that in big picture, and reputational damage obviously is virtually irreparable to a company that has a major incident, or takes a very long time to lose that stigma. So I'm kind of there with that. Sort of, that's my kind of view, according to, I suppose, Kevin. There may be some that disagree, but that's where I'm from. Very basic and a common sense approach.
Yeah, that's really great. You mentioned about the damage to a reputation. It's maybe irreparable if something really big does happen. And you mentioned transparency or sharing as well. What would be some key things that you think people really could be sharing without damaging the intellectual property of their processes or what they're doing? What are some things companies could be sharing in this area?
I think looking at sort of best in out practices, like, you know, some of these companies now we talk about emergency response now with Qiddiya, we're looking at on-site emergency facilities because the hospitals and the civil defence are quite far away logistically. You know, we've done a very basic sort of logistical plan and a scenario, and we're finding that sort of 40 minutes and 25 minutes, those are the difference between life and death. And so therefore, as an initiative and given to me by my executive director, is let's look at on-site facilities, you know, for fire. Let's have a couple of fire tenders, paramedics, doctors on site, a treating clinic, not a hospital, but a treating clinic that can preserve life until we can get them to the right hospital. So there's stuff out there. Saudi Aramco's done some great stuff. I think with sharing sort of initiatives like that, especially with some of these gigaprojects that are coming up, and some of these onshore facilities that have already had those things in place with fire and emergency rescue, etc., that sharing that kind of information would be so beneficial. At the moment, I'm finding that I am not a crisis manager specialist. I know about it and I have an awareness of it, and it unfortunately seems to get branded into the health and safety sort of, right, health, safety, oh, your security, oh, and your crisis manager, because I don't think nobody else wants to, one, manage it, two, they don't know where to put it, three, then, and there's a cost implication if you bring on a crisis manager or an emergency response manager. And so I think kind of all these things, the health and safety aspect has grown over the years with health and safety, oh, let's put in environment, HSE, then it became Q, you know, health, safety, environmental, quality, then there's security. And now you're finding that emergency response is kind of getting badged into it. And now there's a specialist skill set involved for crisis management, without a shadow of a doubt. And I am, being honest, not that person. I read, I know about it, I'm aware of it, I have a common sense approach to it. But if you wanted me to badge it and say I am an expert, or, you know, or a professional in that field, I would have to say no. But I know what I want, and I would then go out and recruit the person that could do that job for me and report into me. I have no issue with that. But when they kind of badge it and then expect people to pick up a new skill set and just like invest in that sort of, I suppose, that development of that person, because you do need to invest in people to get them into that degree. You're also putting a workload on, and they always say the old story is, put, you know, one straw that broke the camel's back or a donkey's back. More keeps going on, and the quality of the work that from the output side of things for that person is going to be severely reduced because of the severe amount of workload with health, safety, environmental, security, emergency response, quality. Suddenly that person is then diluting his focus, and that makes a major difference then into performance levels on health and safety. The guy is only one person, and if he's split up between 5 or 6 disciplines, he's going to struggle, even with the best will in the world and the best work ethic in the world. And obviously the simple thing is, Craig, to work smart. You know, I prefer a person that can work 8 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours a day, deliver what he's supposed to deliver, rather than somebody say, I've worked 15 hours a day and I've really had kind of the same or less out of it, and the guy's got less sleep, less quality time with family, because there's a family element balance is required. But I suppose going back to the key question was that sharing of stuff like these new initiatives with on-site emergency response would be a fantastic way to go forward. There's some great practices out there. I've been privy to, some people have shared some items with me. And you look at it, there is a lot that goes into it. There is absolutely, it's to excuse the pun, it's a minefield, and from a reputational thing, if companies were to realize that crisis management or emergency response managers or directors are a valuable asset to protection of the company and to people, the asset, then you'd actually find that there'd be a step change and there'd be a turn, and the company would benefit, for the sake of what I call pennies in the scope of things, financial investment in that type of thing. The return would be exponential.
Kevin, you mentioned about the Gigaprojects and these enormous infrastructure things that are happening. I think you said 342 square kilometres is the size of this project.
Yeah.
For those of us who don't know anything about it, how about you share?
Sorry, how big is what? Sorry.
I think you said it was 342 square kilometres was this massive project. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of part of the reforms and for the 2030 vision for Saudi Arabia. We're looking at it's Six Flags is going to be the running the operation of the theme park. It's going to be one of the largest theme parks globally. It's going to be up there with the Disney. Obviously, Six Flags is a major player. Texas companies that own and operate more amusement parks, I believe, than Disney and Universal put together. So it's a big thing. But amongst all this, there's going to be residential, there's going to be nature trails. Qiddiya has obviously got on two levels. There's a kind of a rock face, a cliff face. So there's lower plateau and upper plateau. The natural environment there is going to embrace that. There's going to be looking at Formula One racetrack, horse racetrack. There's going to be theatres, arenas, obviously malls, hotels. With the theme parks there, water theme parks, it's going to be quite something. I mean, I've seen some of the video presentations, and the vision is quite incredible. And you've got other stuff like Neon and Red Sea, Al Mala. All those are the other Gigaprojects, and I just think it's going to change the whole aspect regarding reforms in Saudi Arabia, and obviously they're looking into the tourist aspect now. Tourists for the first time are being granted relatively easy access into the kingdom, and there's lots of things to see there. It's quite an incredible country, and I think this can only benefit them going forward. The fact that they're committing to this, that Qiddiya is very committed to a step change in performance on health and safety and behaviours and culture. They're very proactive. The short time that I've been with them, they are very, very accommodating. They're looking at initiatives, they're looking at ideas. As I said to you, with this emergency on-site facilities was an idea that was put to me by my executive director, the deputy executive director of the program, which I thought was great. That means, he's already bought into this, and this is his kind of baby, and I'm running with it for him. And he understands that there has to be a third party involvement. We're even now looking at third party consultants to get involved to actually put the scope of works together for those contractors. So we have the right people, the right resources, the right tools, the right locations, the right logistical sort of testing and stuff to make sure that we can preserve that life, that we can work in conjunction with the civil defence, because obviously if there's a big, say, God forbid, if there's a big event on a fire on site or something, we're there to control it, to mitigate that until the main civil defence units get there and be able to extinguish that event. So it's more of preservation. It's not us saying we're going to take over the whole thing and we're going to have our own hospital. What we are trying to say is that we will preserve life. We will have paramedics. We'll have doctors on site, and we will make sure that they're stabilised before we get them to the right hospital, because all hospitals have different skills. Again, different things. One might be a neurology specialist. One might be to do with heart. One might be to do with any number of things. So you've got to know as well where the hospitals are, what they specialise in, so that we don't mess about by going to different hospitals, and then the meantime that person is then suffering or potentially becomes a statistic that we don't want.
This has been really interesting. Just in the next couple of minutes that we have left, would you mind telling us and sharing maybe some career advice or tips for people who may want to do what you do in the future?
Think about it carefully. It's I believe it wasn't my first choice for job. I worked with nightclubs and I was promotions and marketing and stage manager and book bands for Richard Branson in Virgin. I had 5 years of much fun and great times, but couldn't imagine myself being sort of the oldest sort of nightclub manager in town. It's a young person's game. So leaving that aside, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who said we're a massive shortage of health and safety. I went and retrained myself, and I had some good breaks, but I think, you make your own luck sometimes. But for me, I suppose that the fact is that as I got into the job, I found that it wasn't turn my phone off at 5 o'clock. Far from it. I keep my phone by my bed, and it's on all the time, basically. And I know they say that that's not good for you from the sleep perspective, but it's because I need to know what's happening out there to the people that we've got working. We're an extended family. So I believe the key thing is passion. You've got to have a passion for the job and to do the right thing. And sometimes, you're not going to win you're not going to win the war, but you might win a few of the battles. It's a big task out there to keep people safe, and I always believe that I need to shave in the morning, and I need to be able to look in that mirror and say to myself, I've done the very, very best I could for the company, for the people that work for us, for the company, and that I can sleep easy at night. And if I can look at myself in the morning, then that's the day I think I need to give up the job, to be honest, because I believe it's all about care, caring about people. You have to build trust elements there as well. You've got to reform. Step change is major, I believe, going forward with health and safety. I know we put in the UK, especially the HSE, Health and Safety Executive, we have all these fantastic standards and ACOPS, approved codes of practice. If you listen to the word, if you look at the word standard, and as you put it there, standard, and people say, I work to the HSE standard. Fantastic. That's nothing to shout about. That's a standard. That doesn't mean anything special. It's a standard. Now, you take a standard and you improve on a standard, so then you get best in-house or you get best practice. That's where you should be aiming all the time, as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to get into the health and safety aspect, I think you've got to like people. Two, you've got to understand and be willing to learn. I've learned so much from people on the job. When I ask a question, to me, I always ask a question. If it doesn't look safe, then it probably isn't safe. So I'll ask the question. And if somebody can give me a great reason, this is the best way, and we've mitigated the risk, and we put the controls in, the hazards, the risks, here's our control, we've reduced the severity, and they can show me that, then I'm great. But I'm quite keen on looking at things from a practical point of view and saying, well, maybe if we thought about doing it this way, or maybe if we thought about doing that, or maybe if we procured a different material, that we wouldn't have to service that bit of the job twice a year, 3 times a year. We'd only have to service it because of this material. We'd only have to service it once every 5, therefore mitigating the risk of people having to go at height or go into a confined space or whatever. So although the cost may be more at the time, across the scope of things over the years, it become a much cheaper and much more friendly and safer environment for the people to work in. So yeah, passion I think is the big one, and just willing to learn. It's key for me that I like learning new things. I'm a diploma qualified lead accident investigator. I love looking into incidences and causal and contributing factors. Looking at all those aspects. So from that, you need to kind of get into the psyche of people and understand where they are. It's fascinating, is what I'd say. And I've still got this passion for the job. My phone still stays on, and I do pick it up, much to my wife's annoyance sometimes, that 1 o'clock in the morning, something to come through, you had an incident, you know, and up I get and off I go. I believe lead by example as well. You know, don't expect people to do things for you that you wouldn't do yourself. And be seen, just be visible. People like to know that people care, the company cares. Make that bridge from corporate into the site. I always find that I don't want to be sat behind a desk. I like to get out onto site. I like to walk around site. I like to, you know, I don't sort of announce myself as coming, you know, to site. I like to just turn up, not to catch anyone out, but I just like to come and see the site in its reality. You know, not that it's been prepared and it looks fantastic. It gives you false perception, and that the site may be doing that. And I've been to sites before where they've done that, and you walk away, and a couple of days later they have an event, and you go, oh, how did that happen? So believe in that transparency and honesty. You know, when people say, oh, we haven't had an incident in or a near miss in a month, is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. We have near misses every single day, every single day, and we have events, you know. So just be honest, and I think then the value of those figures, the value of those statistics that a lot of companies hold dear, will have so much more meaning, because you're doing the main thing, the one main thing, which is, you know, a protection of people and preservation of life, and protection of and reducing property damage, or negating property damage.
Kevin, your passion is really clear for people and for what you do in your job and your role. So, and I do want to thank you. You know, you've rescheduled this to make sure that it happens for our listeners and our viewers. So, Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
All right, Craig. Thank you very much. Be safe out there and take care.